There we go. Okay. So we have two student centers, primary and secondary. The primary console is what runs from K to 6. The secondary is what runs from 7 to 12, and we will run through both of them because we do have some teachers that are teaching grade 8 and 9. So I do want to show you what those look like. And it is online, so it definitely bridges that home and school aspect if you want parents to use it at home or students to use it at home, or if they're away and they want to keep on top of schoolwork. So let's launch into the student platform first. We're going to go into the primary console. So that's the console that runs from kindergarten to grade 6. And then we'll do the secondary. So students will have their own usernames and passwords. They simply log in, and I'd say the first class is definitely personalizing the platform. So you're going to have students that are going to want to really adjust, put a background, play around with their avatar. So give them a couple minutes to kind of get introduced and used to what's in the program. The avatars are in here, and they do have an engagement piece to them. So students can create their basic avatar. However, they earn a bank of credits here, and credits are earned through improvement. So the goal is if they want to buy accessories or certain items for their avatars, they have to improve, which is great. So although they start off basic, then again, they can goal set within there. If I keep scrolling on the right-hand side, there is take a tour, so students can play this mini video if they would like to see how the center has been laid out. And then further down is the individual progress. So I do recommend that if you have a group of students that are interested in goal setting, this is a great way to get them to do some self-goal setting here within the Mathletics program. So some teachers will actually have the students do kind of like a self-assessment on where do you see Mathletics supporting in, how many gold bars would you earn, and all our systems are based on traffic lights. So you'll see the amber, the red, and the green zone. So students will also indicate maybe how many green bars they might earn, or how many amber bars they might earn, or red bars. So again, it's just kind of getting them to set that parameter or that base on what they have within expectations. They also earn daily points. Again, a great goal setting. If they reach 1,000 within a week, they earn a certificate. So if this is going to be an engagement piece within your class, you can have students to always strive to reach that 1,000 within a week. It is quite achievable. There's gold bars, and then there's also a Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is a great way for students to see their names in lights on a live feed, and this gets either refreshed every day or every week, depending on which aspect they're going through, but a great initiative to support the students. So these are just engagement pieces on the far right. And then if we go to the top, you'll see these tabs. So each one of these tabs will focus on something different. The reason that there are different tabs is that we want students to be in the driving seat of their own learning. So what area do they want to focus in on? Do they want to focus in on the learn, the play, the review, or the video extensions? It allows students to kind of determine the areas of needs that they would like to focus in on. However, teachers still definitely do have that way to facilitate the learning if they want to guide them into a certain concept or activity. So we're going to go through all of them. Let's start off with the learn. The learn is reflective of the curriculum. So as a teacher, what you're able to do in the back end is differentiate your group of students based on grouping them in different groups. I will show you that when we get to the teacher center. And you're able to differentiate, and nowhere on the site does it indicate to the child the curriculum or the content that they're working on. So differentiation is discrete. These would be all your units. Within the units would be your corresponding activities. And if I keep scrolling down, it wraps up with the unit test here. If I go all the way to the top, you can see there's an Are You Ready? So this could be a great pre-assessment. If you want to know what their prior knowledge is within place value, this will give you a good baseline. These are all your activities here, and then it wraps up with a unit test here at the bottom. Internally within this particular place value unit, if I look at the far right, you'll see there's a printable section here. The printable section is student work booklets. So we house these student work booklets in here for parents more so students can go home They can have access to these work booklets and they can print them at home if parents are asking for that extra paper and pencil component. In your teacher center, you do get access to over 100 of these work booklets that run from K to 12, including Dr. Marion's small tasks that I will show you in the teacher center. But it's just nice to know that the printables for the student booklets are available within the student center. And then let's go through one of these activities. So we're going to go through, let's say, making big numbers count. These are a series of 10 questions. They'll vary in ways to answer them. So you can see I've already started 3 questions. I'm on the 4th question for this particular one. It just clicks in the amount of blocks and I press enter. And it tells you instantly if you get it right or wrong. Let's say I complete this question and I get it wrong. It'll indicate where I went wrong. Internally, there's also an I button up top here. And you won't be able to see it right now, but the I button is housed there for a visual prompt. So if the students need kind of like more information is what the intention is for the I button, it brings up a visual prompt and it goes through a mini strategy on how to complete these questions. So if they are multi-step questions or they need that visual prompt, they can click on the I button. It gives them a nice little introduction. And then they can go back and complete the question. If they get it wrong and they're not sure where they went wrong, they can click on that I button again and see how to complete it correctly so they're able to self-correct before moving on. When I started off with these series of 10 questions, I started off with just numbers within the tens. And then I got 2 right, and then it moved up to increasing the numbers to 20s, then 30s, and 40s. So it scaffolds quite nicely as they're moving up. For this particular series of questions. The goal here is that the students would complete all 10 questions and get a final mark, and then it gets tracked in the teacher center so teachers are able to see how the student did within making big numbers count. Now if I close out of this and I see that I've done this prior, and you can see that I have different colored bars here. So I got red, which basically indicates that I got 50% or less. So if I want to get that green bar or that gold bar, I could go in and complete the series of 10 questions again. They would be exposed to different questions, so they wouldn't be completing the exact same questions over again, allowing them to improve. Okay, so students visually can see how they've done, and it also indicates to them maybe an area that they can improve in based on the color of that traffic light system. So that was underneath the learn, and that's the curriculum content. The next area is the play, and this is where we house all of our mathematics games. So if I scroll down, here are all the areas they can play in. So we're going to start off with live mathletics. Live mathletics is a 60-second challenge with other kids across the world based on computation skill set or mental math facts. What it allows students to do is build that speed and accuracy based on that mental math fact. So there's 10 levels. Level 1 starts off really basic. It's addition to 10. As they progressively move up, you can see the skill sets get a little bit harder. And then at level 10, you're starting to do logarithms. So depending on where their individual skill set is, they can choose the level they would start off on. It's not grade specific. So they would choose the level and then they choose how they would like to play. Versus the world means that they get matched up with live students across the world. Currently, there's just over 4,700 students playing. Versus the computer, if they want to go at their own pace, or they can even play against peers as well. So to give you a quick example of what that looks like, I click go and I clicked versus the world. So it's going to match me up with other students that are currently in front of their computers playing live mathletics. Great cross-curricular tie-in to talk about different countries, time zones, flags, currency. I have some teachers that will put up a map and pin all the different countries that the students have played against. So these are the live students I'm playing against. Question comes up top. I type in the answer and I do this as fast as I can. If I get one wrong, you'll notice it's like baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. So I got an X right beside my name. So you can see it becomes pretty much a race on how to try and answer as many questions as you can within the 60 seconds and without striking out. Students also can see how they've done afterwards, and then they can go back and play again. I even have teachers that will go into this and play against their students. These are my classmates, so I can see who's online. You cannot talk internally to each other, but it just allows for students to maybe go home and play against peers if they would like to. Okay. So that's the live Mathletics, and let's go back to play and show you what else is within there. Rainforest Math is great for extension work. Some teachers might even use this on their interactive whiteboards as an instructional tool or just a nice little visual as well. It runs from K to 6, so students can go in here and independently explore, or as a teacher, I can go into, let's say I'm teaching grade 3. If I scroll down, you can see all the different circles that are presented, meaning different areas. And I'm going to say we're working on place value. So I'm going to click on this circle, and it's going to bring up a nice little visual on this particular place value. I'm going to click on the base 10 blocks because I like these manipulatives. So what I can do is have this up on my interactive whiteboard and display this particular picture, have the students have those base 10 blocks in front of them, and then they can have those tangible manipulatives, follow along, put the place value down, and then they can come in and type in the answer here. Okay. So that's one way you can definitely use it, and that was Rainforest Math. Multiverse is a multiplication game. So what it is it's a multi-level game that focuses on moving from one planet to another planet, and it's all based on multiplication facts and problem solving within multiplication. So students really can dive really deep into the multiverse platform just because it is multi-level and it is very much gaming, but it definitely is a foundation of multiplication. So that's multiplication or multiverse. Timetable tunes are animated videos that focus on the multiplication fact families, and they're just music videos that run from fact family 2 all the way to fact family 12. And then Math A to Z is a great little introduction or dictionary. So if a student is just being introduced to a particular concept, they can search it or scroll through it. And again, teachers can do the same. So if you wanted to talk about 3D shapes and you wanted something that was a little bit more visual, you could put this up on your projector or interactive whiteboard and present the different concepts. And that was Math A to Z. So that's all underneath the play. The review is the last area. In Ontario, we have some standardized assessments, including some EQAO practice tests as well, and they are done digitally. So what that means is that teachers are able to assign these diagnostic or benchmarking assessments or even test preparation for EQAOs. They're conducted online, so the students will get notified that they've been assigned this assessment. The students have to complete it online, and then it's marked for you online, and you analyze the results online. So it's a really easy way to execute that assessment if you want to dive a little bit deeper into what the student knows. And I will show you that in the Teacher Center. The last area is videos. This videos tab is more for my early learners. So in this case, particularly kindergarten and grade 1, these videos will sit here on introducing that particular concept. So it just allows for more of an exploratory experience. If your students are higher than grade 3 or 4, you won't be able to access the videos because it is for our early learners. So that's all the tabs within the primary console. I'm going to run through the secondary console, and then I'll open it up to questions. So if you do have any questions in the meantime about this platform, just put it into the chat, and then I'll review them once we finish the secondary console. So the secondary console is what runs from grade 7 to grade 12, and it's based on their actual grade. So if you do have a student, let's say, in grade 7, but working at a grade 3 or 4 level, you can still differentiate, but it just allows for everyone to be on the same platform. So again, differentiation is discrete. So you can see that it is very much age appropriate, not as much animation, but it is still laid out in similar ways as the learn, play, and review. And then they also still have ways for them to track their goals and engagement. Where it differs more so is underneath the learn. So these are your units. Within the units, you still have those corresponding activities, still starting with an are you ready, still ending with a unit test. But you can see I have a little bit more on the right-hand side. So if I'm being introduced to exponents and I want to dive a little bit deeper, I have access to videos, interactives, and printables. The videos are mini tutorials. They're probably about 60 seconds or less. Gives them a nice little introduction on that particular concept, and it kind of starts to just introduce them or build that foundation on how to complete a certain strategy within that concept. Interactives is a program called GeoGebra, so it allows them to manipulate within a worksheet. Great for visual learners that really like to see what's being done if they change the variables. And then they also still have access to those printable student workbooklets that they can print off and still do paper and pencil. So you can see there's a little bit more resources here, giving them a little bit more of an independent feel on supporting their learning as they're progressing through the Mathletics program. And then as they complete these 3 areas, then they can go back and complete the series of 10 questions within the activities here. That's the biggest difference between the 2 platforms. The Play won't have as many games in there because some of those games are more of the K-6 realm, but they still do have access to like Live Mathletics, Multiverse, and Math A to Z. Okay. So that is a secondary console. Why don't we just take a minute or so and see if there's any questions. Again, you could type it into the chat if you have any questions before we move into the teacher console. I don't think anything is popping up right now. So why don't we carry on to the Teacher Center. So hopefully everyone has their teacher logins already and have been able to log in. Once you log into the teacher portal, you'll see what the center looks like. I do want to say right off the bat that there is quite a bit of functionality in here. You do not need to remember it all. Just pick what resonates with you right now. There will be more in-depth support as we progress through the school year. So other webinars coming up, professional learning day. So right now it's just to set a good ground of launching and feeling comfortable with your students. So we'll talk about what's at least basic or where you should at least start with. But I will dive a little bit deeper just in case there are existing teachers that have used the platform and want to know what they can do next. But as I'm going through this, right off the homepage, there are some videos that I do encourage you to explore. And then also underneath the help area, there are more guides and videos in there as well. So there is support if you need to refresh on a certain area within the navigation bar. So within your navigation bar, these are all different functionalities. The most important one and where to start is underneath classes. The reason why is because this is where your student center or your student logins are housed. So you'll see that there's the sign-in cards here. Print them off. They come off like little business cards with the student's username and passwords ready to go. So all they have to do is log in. And then also your student list and where you can create differentiated groups is here as well. And that's underneath class and group management. So if I click in here, most of you, if you haven't created any ability groups, would probably only see like a default group here. If you're split grade, you might even see 2 default groups here. And what I've done is I've created different ability groups here just based on what I would need. So I would do that by creating a new group by clicking on this add new group. I'm going to name it test 2. Click the check mark. And by default, it will always go to Canada curriculum. So you want to make sure that you put it onto Ontario content. So I'm going to change the course simply by choosing the country, the grade, and then you'll see all the provincial options. And I'll scroll down to Ontario and click the check mark. So basically all I've done is allocated the curriculum to this group of test 2. Now I've created different differentiated groups here. If I want to place a student into this test group, how I would do so is just by clicking right onto these this people icon or this person icon. And you can also see your student list here. So by seeing your student list here, you can see if you have the right students or if there's any naming you need to change. You can even change the passwords here if you want to keep them all simple. So you have a couple options here. And then I want to manage my students because I want to place a student on that test 2 group that I just created. So what I would do here is find that group, test 2, and then all my students are here. So if I want a student working on that curriculum, all I'm going to do is click, point the arrow, and it asks me if I want to move them, and I say yes, and then they've been automatically moved into that test group 2. That means that the students would be working on that content that I placed them on. They won't know that they're working at a higher or lower level. If it's too easy or too hard, then maybe I move Catherine up or down into a different group. So you can differentiate throughout the year. This is a great starting point to just make sure that the students are starting off at a level that you feel that they are confident or are going to be challenged within. Okay. And that was underneath classes. The next area is courses and tests. So for this particular area, there's 2 major tiles. There's an area where it says view and copy courses, and this allows you to make edits to our courses. So we provincially aligned the course content for Ontario, but you might have students that are on IEPs or students that are on modified curriculum. Maybe they have strengths and weaknesses in various grades. What you're able to do here is take any of our courses and make edits to them. So some teachers will amalgamate various grades together, allocating that to one student or to a group of students, or again, reflecting an IEP and their learning outcomes, adjusting the content as well. This, so this area is going to be extended further later on in a webinar that we will be conducting to show you how to kind of create that course. However, if you do feel that this is a functionality you do want to utilize right away, go in and play around with it. It's quite user-friendly, and you won't do any harm. So I do encourage, if you find that very important right now, go in and play around. And then right underneath there is the test area, and this is where we house all of those standardized assessments, including EQAOs. So let's go to Ontario, and I will show you what you're able to access. So you'll notice that there are the Ontario assessments of mathematics, and there's 2 for each grade. And then if I scroll down, you can see there's some EQAOs as well. These assessments here are done as a pre and a post, and they run from grade 2 to grade 9. If I want to preview them, it gives you a nice little, kind of like a nice little overview of what the questions look like. There are a series of 30 questions. And if I click on a question, it does indicate where it ties to your program of studies. So it's nice to see that visual as well. And you simply just schedule it. The students get notified, they complete it online, and then you can analyze the results. So if you want to dive a little bit deeper, I do recommend looking at these and scheduling them if this is something you want to start off with fairly soon. And that was underneath courses and tests, right underneath this icon. Okay. The next area is assign. So there's a couple things that you can look at when going into this feature. You won't have any data yet if you haven't launched with your students, but as they start to go through the program and collect those points and play around, they'll start to collect that data for you to review. But if you're looking, let's say, to create or to assign a certain task, this is where you can do so. So this is where you can kind of facilitate where the learning is taking place. So if you've just completed a certain lesson and you want the students to maybe go home, or they're going to their devices, or you know that you have access to a device every Monday and you want to make sure that they're doing a certain task before they do the play or the avatar, this is where you can kind of prioritize. So let's say these are my units, these are my students, and we're working on number counting and ordering. So if I open up this unit, you can see right off the bat, it brings in those traffic light color systems. So I have some good data that the students have already built in here. So you'll see this once your students go in there. It's a great visual because teachers can definitely see the areas that the students might need support in, or the ones that they might need a little bit more of a challenge in. I can see where the bulk of the learning's taken place. The number 2 in the far right-hand corner just tells me how many times they've attempted it. But let's say I want all my students to log in and do the Are You Readies. I have the option to simply click on the circle, highlighting all of them. If I unclick it and click it to an individual, it highlights for that particular student. What I'm doing here is saying I want all my students to log in and do Are You Ready? So by clicking the Assign button on the bottom, I can choose when this would be released. So I can release this maybe on Monday, like I said, when I have access to the devices. They get notified, it locks them out of everything saying they've been assigned this task and they have to do that prior to anything else. So this really gets them to do the important part first before doing the play part, if that's how you want to structure it. A couple recommendations is I don't recommend assigning a task right now if your students haven't had a chance to play around with the Mathletics program. Let them have a couple weeks to get their feet wet into the program, personalize it, play around with the avatar, kind of get that fun engagement piece going, and then go in and assign a task. I also don't recommend assigning a bunch of tasks all at once, just because the students might see that they have a bunch of assigned tasks and they can't do so much of the play, and it might just discourage them. So it's just a way to kind of strategize it. I do have some teachers that will actually go in here and assign a task for the whole month. So every Monday they might have a task that's being released because they want maybe homework to be done every Monday. So they go in and they pre-plan when the start date is released so that they know it's already done. So it's just kind of pre-planning if you want. Okay, so that's assigning a task, and that's underneath Assign. The next 2 areas are where you can pull further into the data area. Again, something to think about is that we will be diving deeper into this data collection and what it means and what it looks like in another webinar to come. But just to kind of give you a high overview, the results give you a nice little perspective on maybe recent results or by students or by activities. So if I wanted to know how my Albert Einstein is doing, I can click on by students. Again, it brings in that visual of the traffic lights here so I can see where the bulk of his learning is taking place. And if I even click right onto the 8, it will tell me what activities these are. So it just tells me as an educator, maybe I need to modify the curriculum, or do I want to construct a new learning plan from him because he's struggling with these activities. So that's the results. The reports go into more of an extensive overview. So you can see there's quite a bit of tiles here. I wouldn't recommend going into all of them because maybe there's data that resonates with you more so. But to give you a high overview of what each one is, certificates is exactly what it means. So the students earn certificates every week. So if this is an initiative in your classroom, I do recommend going in here and printing off those certificates. Some teachers will even have a bulletin board and they'll put all the certificates on there. They'll even do it in an awards assembly or acknowledge it in a newsletter. So it's just a way to kind of build that community and that excitement. Achievement and improvement rate is a great report because it tells you an overall unit score per student. So if we were doing number counting and ordering and I wanted to see how the students were doing overall within that unit, I can click in here and it gives me a unit average, and it also tells me if they're improving within those activities too. So it dives a little bit further in there. The effort and participation is kind of like the non-academic side of it. So it will tell you how many points students have earned or even how much time online that they've logged as well. This is great to acknowledge those students that have earned maybe quite a bit of points within that particular week. So it's kind of just a shout out to that particular student. And then the last report that I do want to go into, because I find that this one might be a little bit valuable because you have report cards coming soon. So this will tell you strengths and weaknesses for the particular student. So what you're able to do here is see 2 parts. I can see as a student my class strengths and weaknesses. So overall, if I look at my weaknesses as an educator, I can see that my students are struggling within these activities and these units. So this might tell me that we probably need to review this a little bit further, or maybe there was a disconnect in the learning, it's not resonating with them. So I just want to maybe reteach it or look at revamping the way that we conducted that particular unit or activity. And then if I click on a student, so let's click on my Albert Einstein again, I can then pull his strengths and weaknesses. So what you're able to do is once you collect that data, you can choose the calendar months to make sure that it reflects when you want the data to be pulled for that report card period. And then you can pull their strengths and weaknesses here. So I can say Albert Einstein is strong in model numbers in ascending order, but struggling with concepts to zero and understanding place value. So it becomes very powerful and prescriptive data that you can pull here, and that was underneath reports in student reports. Okay, 2 more areas and then we're done. The library is where we house all of our digital and Dr. Marion Small activities or workbooklets. So basically you have access to over 100 Canadian workbooklets that run from K to 12. These are the student workbooklets that are housed in the Student Center, but within here you get access to both the student and teacher booklets. So you have options to kind of take a look at maybe filtering it out by grade. So if I was a grade 3 teacher, I'd click on grade 3 and I can see all the booklets that I would have access to within the grade 3 content. There is French in here amalgamated from K to 6, and you can see that there is a student and teacher booklet. So these student booklets run from about 30 to 60 pages each. They're black and white and extremely engaging. There's coloring sheets, cutouts, there's collaborative games that are great for small group instructions embedded in them as well. And then your teacher booklets have assessments and answers in there. The ones that have this symbol, the 1 to infinity, are created by Dr. Marion Small, and they're exclusive booklets in the Mathletics program. So if I click on this build a number, what I'm able to do as a teacher is get that lesson or that teacher's notes on how to execute this particular lesson. There's an interactive, so what I would do is this would be a collaborative lesson. So I would put the interactive on my interactive whiteboard or projector, and we would conduct this lesson together where I'm able to move the units, flats, rods to show various solutions. Then you also have access to a video to play to your students. And then students can independently reinforce by printing off the student problem-solving sheet and then get them to record the various solutions. So this would be a full-blown collaborative lesson on place value and build a number. And her stuff is amalgamated throughout the K to 8 area. So by filtering it out, you'll kind of see them there. And we also have more of her stuff underneath rich tasks. Again, from K to 6 or K to 8. You will see that there are student and teacher booklets here as well. The teacher booklets are great because they're embedded with rubrics. So again, you can take that assessment a little bit further by looking at these work booklets and problem-solving tasks. So that's all housed underneath the library. And then the last area is just the student view. So this is just a way for you to access the student portal if you want to play around or if you want to play live mathletics against your students. Some teachers will even use this as an instructional tool like the Rainforest Math or concepts or the Math A to Z. So it's just a way for you to utilize whichever platform, primary or secondary, you'd like to explore it. So that is a quick overview of the Teacher Center. Again, I know it's a lot of information, so if you're wondering where to start, I would say definitely play around in the classes, print off the student sign-in cards, and make sure your students are differentiated at the level that you would like them to start off with. And as we are going through the school year, we will be extending the knowledge in the support a little bit further. Right now, it's just about getting your feet wet and launching it with your students, and then we'll progressively move forward from here. So I thought I would take maybe a minute or two and see if there's any questions. I will give you a little bit of time to type in if there are, or if you want to unmute yourself, you can also ask a question. Todd, okay, so this is a question from Todd. In the assessment section, do the colors reflect the first try? So I'm assuming it's the assign area in this area. and correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, but I'm assuming it's these colors. This would be these would reflect the latest. So the most recent. If you want to see what, let's say, their prior mark was beforehand, then you would go underneath results, and that would show you what they did the first time. Then you'd go underneath reports, and you'd go into achievement and improvement, and this would tell you their first, latest, and highest score. Where the student profile was. Was that where you was that? Did that answer your question, Todd?
Hi, Daisy. No, you showed us the student profile section.
Yep.
That had
With the
to be
colors in
color
them.
coded with the same colors. Now,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that those colors were
The
that
latest.
profile was taken and how they did with the assigned work.
Exactly. So that was that the color coding that the students would see would be the
That's what you're
latest.
referring to?
Yeah. Is that the one you're referring to, the student center? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. That is it for our session today. If you do have any questions or any areas that you'd like to dive deeper into, you can definitely reach out to myself or Suma. But there are definitely more to come. So right now, hopefully you can launch and get into the platform fairly soon and introduce it to your students. And we're extremely excited to be working with you this year. So that is it for today, and have a great weekend, everyone. Bye for now.